Thanks, Millie, and welcome back, everyone. I just wanted to remind everyone that there are two tracks. So if you're looking for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia presentation, that's on track 2. But if you're looking for the presentation from Abbott on implementing DAM-driven modular content to power increased content velocity and customer engagement, you're in the right place. So this morning in my opening comments, I talked about the phases of DAM, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And when I talked about 3.0, I talked about some of the changing content models that needed to be in place to truly achieve what many organizations are looking to accomplish in the 3.0 world. And part of that is expanding our definition of what our assets are. And one of the big challenges is understanding how granular our content needs to be managed. And I think that's what Kerry is going to talk about today, and understanding how modular our content needs to be in order to piece together those modules to create delightful experiences. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce from Abbott Healthcare, Kerry Gilzane. Kerry, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jared. Hi, everyone. So coming into thinking about this presentation, I wrote the title some time ago, and looking at it now, it seems a bit of a mouthful. And I can certainly see Jared was working his way through it. So this talk is really all about having your content in a DAM, how one can use components to merge different components to make your assets, how that all plays together in your promotional and communication system, and how all of these pieces can get delivered through your CRM or channels or websites to various customers. So in a nutshell, if you had a DAM and you had your components in it and the metadata was all in the right place, and there were some business rules that you could merge these different components together, then it's possible to use the same pictures or assets or texts to combine them in different ways to make different elements of promotional content. And of course, in that way, merging these different items means one can produce content a lot faster and approve it a lot quicker and deliver larger volumes of content to consumers, and of course, in a more granular way. So that is the long expression related to that title. So as we move to the next slide, of course, what we see is many organizations approve content in one system, as you know, like Zinc. Then they've got to put this content into another system, and then they've got to move the high-risk files over to somewhere else, or maybe you're operating with 2 or 3 CMSs. And then, of course, the complexity is increased when separate components are created for use in modular content. So as many of you well know, it's quite difficult just moving bits of content around through different CMSs. So this presentation is just going to explore ways of doing it better and frameworks able to do this. And I've even thrown in some metrics and KPIs that will help in your thinking. Perfect. So what's the big challenge? Well, most organizations are producing up to 40% more content, more digital, more content. And of course, with the increased content needs, there are some challenges. Soft measure challenges, approval time, variety of different content types, moving the content from agency to end customer. All of these measures are increasing. And of course, a lot of these hard measures are also increasing with the amount of content that's got to be delivered. More content, higher costs, more working hours. And of course, many of you will hear your regulatory or medical colleagues saying, I've got so much more work to do, and maybe they're asking HR for more headcount. And of course, HR may be saying, we're not hiring any more people. You guys have just got to find a better way to cope with 40% more work with the same headcount. So of course, organizations are looking to strengthen or optimize their systems and processes so that they can cope with producing much more content because we're in a digital world. So in order to do this, modular content is what is required. Optimizing your review and approval processes is also what's required. And there are also some other things which are also required. So if we look at one example, and again, some empirical data for all of you, generally, industry standard, it's taking around 2.03 days to take one asset from upload, submission to approval to that asset being approved. That means MLR review, couple of rounds of changes and approval. If there are certain things which are in place and the ability to strengthen that approval is achieved, basic things that you know and love, better agency, better copy, etc., then better companies are achieving this in around industry standard of 1.23 days. I've put a little URL reference link here to where this data is coming from, and that's a webinar on the subject that I participated in a few months back. So I won't labour these slides, but you've got to reduce your review and approval. Second is, as we are developing all of this content, at the end of the day, and I'm just going to try to find my laser pointer, voila. What we want to do is deliver that content, right message, right customer, right channel, right time. That's all we want to do. And we want to have the content preferences, get the interaction data coming back, the personalized content, of course, because we need better systems to cope with smaller and smaller segments of people. And of course, all of this attitudinal data. So all of these systems, the platforms, the marketing clouds, the DAM platforms, the web platforms, content authoring platforms, if you guys are making these advances yet, all connected and delivering all of these different types of content through all of these channels and more. Problem? How can we avoid making different types of content all over again for each of these channels? Wouldn't it be better to have all of the content components in one place, and then we can just merge these pre-approved components into an email format, webinar format, web format, MSL, detail aid format. So that's what we're talking about in terms of using your DAM for modular content. And a few companies are looking at this now and doing it, and I'd probably say around 10%. So what do we mean? In the old days, and many of you are probably still in the old days, one needed to create content by the agency, approve the content in something like Zinc, which is your content approval. And then you had to get the high-res file from the agency, and then you had to put the high-res file into some kind of CMS. And if it's a website CMS, you've got to put the high-res file there. And if it's a detail aid that you're making, you've got to put that same high-res files into a different CMS. And then somewhere along the line, you've got to move that content again to the channel and then deploy it. So multiple systems, lots of time, and reinventing the wheel, creating the same content for different channels, which many of you are doing at the moment. Step forward to nowadays, one future system, one DAM, and the difference here is, and I'll come onto those in a few other slides, your content parts or components, separate images, separate text, separate approved items, merged all in the same system to form the email type of content or the web or the sales aid, approved in the same system, and then with API integrations, deploying that content straight to channel. 50% faster, 70% cheaper. So 2 systems here, and toward the end of this presentation, I'll just touch briefly on future systems, which are blockchain and non-fungible token systems, which we'll see emerging in the next few years. So many of you are here, lots of manual, a few of you are here, and a few of you are working with modular content in your DAM, which is of course what we're talking about today. So if we get this right, and you have the system set up in the right place, then you should be expecting, and I've put very broad numbers here so I don't give away too much IP, 80% reduced approval times. And if you go back to the slide of the approval times from 2.03 days to 1.53 days, then you can see it's perfectly possible. 20 to 60% more content produced with the same headcount. Yes, it is true, doing it in this way. Then, of course, because we are having the components and the assets within the DAM that can be shared across regions and countries, assuming that you've got your metadata and your tagging all in the right place. I could talk about that at length, but just assume you've got that done. Then you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 40% of your assets shared and reused. And actually industry average is around 15%. But as you scale that to globally, you're looking of the order of a few $1 million in cost avoidance. And again, I don't want to give away too much here, but that is your rationale to take this type of approach, and your procurement people would love this. And then, of course, as we look at the ability to update, change that content based on those granular content preferences, one is much better positioned to update, optimize, reformat, and redo the content based on the data that's coming back. And then, of course, crucially, what you want is one single CMS, one single source of truth. What you don't want is some of your content in the approval, some of your content in your DAM system, some of your content in your, for example, Adobe CMS, some of your content in your detail aid content manager, and some of your content in your marketing cloud. That's absolute hell. You want it in one place with the APIs so that you're moving everything seamlessly through, as I've demonstrated here. Okay, so let's define modular content, and I've got about 15 minutes left, and I'm ahead of schedule. So let's imagine, and I'm speaking in metaphors here, you are working in a doggy shampoo medical company, and you have lots of images in your DAM already. You have lots of different logos, good old doggy coin, as I'm sure some of you are laughing about. You've got lots of copy within your DAM, and many of you, of course, will need to have the relevant copy pre-approved as components within your DAM. And if you haven't got that yet, it's something you need to be looking at doing. And I'll come on to some of the hurdles in able to achieve that later. And then, of course, you require a lot of those pre-approved claims already also in your DAM. So many different types of asset or components in the DAM. And what are you looking to do? If you wanted to create your next campaign, which is, for example, snuggle up with your puppy in bed tonight. 9 out of 10 puppies said our shampoo is great. So which puppy image are you going to use to support that promotional item? Well, naturally, of course, you are going to use happy puppy here. Snuggle up with your puppy in bed tonight. 9 out of 10 puppies said our shampoo is great. What this means is, once you have merged these assets in one place and it gets to approval, your regulatory and your medical will be reviewing the merged item to see that it makes sense. This stuff is already approved as components in your DAM. However, when they are all brought together, they ought to have the meaning, which is what the promotional element and item is needing to articulate. What you won't do is have dirty, horrible dog, and text that says your puppy does not love you. So the business rules around how these various components should be combined is also built into how they can be merged. And then finally, because there are multiple components in your DAM system, when they are merged, this family of items, which are governed by business rules, can then be routed to an email, bit of copy, nice picture, logo, and your claim, or that same family of items can then be routed to your landing page or your website. The secret at being able to deliver this composite asset is the ability to deliver this through to channel by something called digital publishing of that complete asset. And again, I'm moving this through this relatively quickly, and I know I've got of the order of 9 minutes left, so I've got to leave a bit for some Q&A. So let's just summarize this then. As you start the journey, new ideas, processes, and tech. How do we convince the organization the change is needed? How do we describe to them what we need, and how do we re-engineer our medical, legal, regulatory? How do we track the soft and hard benefits I've alluded to earlier in the presentation? What new systems do we need to deploy, and how can we afford it? What's the business case? Once you have your technology and your system either being built or deployed, there will be many, many departments impacted. And again, we've heard a lot about change management, and I'll just take this from the first person story. So marketing, we want to produce more better content and better campaigns for the same spend. That's all we want, more, better, to reach new customers and to reach more segmented customers. How do we do that? Medical, you need to show us how to approve this modular content in the new way, and we'll tell you if it's permissible. So we say to medical, well, actually, no, you need to look at what we are wanting to achieve, and you need to develop and optimize your SOPs to take modular content and approve it on the basis of approved references, pictures, images, and you need to approve it on the basis of meaning. So one really needs to help medical to lead with the updates of the SOPs, and don't have it if medical says, can you develop the SOPs for us because it's digital? No, it's not. It's an upgrade to medical SOPs, so you guys have to do some work and you've got to change. Regulatory, also the same. Show us how to prove content in this new way and we'll tell you if it's permissible. No, this is what we want to do. You work out a way we can get this done and you give us the SOP. So as digital people, what we're saying is these guys have to put some effort into it and do some thinking around it. And that comes to top management support and the governance model mandating this as separate project and change management. Legal, show us how to approve content in this new way and we'll tell you if it's permissible. No, this is what we want to do. You tell us what's wrong with it. And if there is nothing wrong with it, this is the policy that we'll go for. I won't go through all of this. Senior management will say, you lot, bring us the solutions and you tell us how this all will work. And it's dependent on all of these guys, not just digital, to be in the dragon's den doing the work so that these guys can react and critique and prod and poke. And then of course, finally, for the affiliates, you've got to show us the way and help us to go the way with this new type of approach. And that means campaigns at those levels. Okay, so one more thing. Future systems, if I've got enough time. You lot would have known about Disaster Girl. And if you don't know about Disaster Girl, then have a little look. So Disaster Girl has sold her digital asset for $500,000. So this digital asset has a code, which is a non-fungible token code attached to it, which means this digital asset is approved, it is unique, and it can be owned by somebody. And I'm saying this because as this unique asset, and of course other people can cut and paste and make a JPEG screen grab, but it won't be the approved, authenticated, original, unique asset. So that's what an NFT is, that more or less runs on blockchain. So what I say by that, as we get to future systems, and that's a talk for another time because I know we're running out of time. In the 1980s, standalone approval systems, your Zincs and your paper systems and your filing cabinets and your Lotus. 2000s, your web-based approval systems, but of course working off one server somewhere. In the 2000s, which is what most of you are working on now, are your cloud-based DAM systems. Great. However, the uniqueness of the approval and the assets that are approved and the security is still non-optimized, which is a barrier to operating all of your components and merging content properly. So next, which is coming, and the next company to crack it will make billions. So next, which is coming, is our distributed DAM networks running decentralized blockchain content systems with our components with non-fungible tokens attached. What I say by that is a digital distributed DAM network that doesn't run in one place on one server. And as these assets are pulled and approved, all of these assets have an NFT attached to it, which is unhackable. And it means that these components on these decentralized systems can be merged in the way that I've described. And then because it's running on a very secure blockchain network, vast amounts of content can be stored, merged, and then delivered to channel. And because we are using blockchain-based NFTs when the asset is approved, it means that these approved assets are foolproof. All of the rights management and so forth are attached to it. And it's the scale of the systems running large volumes of content which will help organizations cope with the speed and the APIs, running these distributed networks as a basis. And of course, doing it this way, these approved contents will be merged in the campaign assets that I've described, and we will see even better systems and better digital asset management systems, all in one place. So I'm just going to conclude here. And of course, at the end of the day, you've got lots of thinkers and you've got lots of doers. And as you move to digital asset management and modular content and digital publishing to power all of the increased content velocity needs, many will say, I've got to think about it, I've got to think about it. But a lot of people will be stuck there just gazing. And for the people in your organization, the situation is, we've got to be doers, not just sit there thinking. So be doers, and for medical and regulatory, there will be some change, and there will be some encouragement for those departments to take some ownership. And for that, you'll need your regional VPs to encourage the regulatory medical VPs and your compliance to drive those SOPs so it copes with what you require. That's it for now. A very quick gallop through, and I believe I've got 6 minutes left for some Q&As.
Plenty of time, Kerry. That was great. Thank you so much for that. It's good to see organizations like yours who are really pushing the envelope here. You know, when I talk about this damn journey, you all are squarely in the 3.0 world, and maybe even your final slides there are really talking about what I maybe even a 4.0 or 5.0 or beyond, which is really fantastic. Yeah, no, but that's but everyone's going to be thinking about it, so it's great to learn from the lessons of the people that come first. So thank you for all that. We appreciate it. So as far as questions go, we actually had a few that were very much talking about the same theme. So I wanted to dive into that really quickly, if you will. And that's really this people trying to get their heads around how modular content relates to, or let me put it this way, how getting approval from MLR from modular content versus the sum of all of its parts, right? You know, as a fully completed item, right? So most people today are used to saying, hey, we have to wait till it's completed and send that through MLR, right? And get all our approvals and then we're good to go. But I think what you're suggesting is something a little bit different there. And people are wondering, do you have to get approval of the components individually and then when they all come together, do it again? Or, you know, how does that all work?
Yeah, great question. And I know who that question's coming from. So it was one of the folks who signed up to this event who reached out to me on LinkedIn in advance. So yeah, completely expecting that question. So how a few companies are doing it, which is the right way to go. So what do you do? Components are uploaded into the system. So it's a reference that's already approved, of course, or a claims that's already approved, or your picture that doesn't need approval is uploaded. It's got the rights management and it's in your DAM. And there may be elements or blocks of copy that have been generated within the DAM as well. So step one, all of these individual components are approved. Doesn't need MLR, it just needs a light approval because these are individual blocks. So very easy as they are uploaded and inputted to the DAM for the very first time to have approval. And the analogy is once a reference is uploaded to your DAM, that reference doesn't need MLR, that is just checked straight to approval by your medic or your marketing who uploads it. Similar to picture, claims, and then of course the images. Okay, step one. Step two is how can these components be combined to form a visual identity of the final asset which you need for MLR approval. So there are some systems which have the business rules incorporated, which means it is possible to drag and drop these components into an email template, or it's possible to drag and drop these components into a website template within the DAM system. These items can only be dropped into a standard template based on the business rules. So you're not going to have dirty puppy component dragged over with the block of text that says sleep happily with your puppy tonight, or angry puppy saying your puppy doesn't love you. So business rules which govern these components, and there are at least two companies who are doing that. I won't speak for ourselves because I'm not allowed to, but certainly Merck's doing it, and one other company. So what you do is when you're trying to persuade your medical folks, you say, well, MSD are doing it, and then your medical and regulatory will only believe that's possible when they understand someone else is doing it. And there are two companies out there using DAM with this type of process with the business rules related to the components. So you've got the components, you drag and drop based on business rules within the DAM. The composite asset is formed, which is the email of the header, the footer, the claims, the image, and that rendition is then sent for approval. And so your MLR team see the merged assets for approval all in one place, and they can approve that based on the meaning. So as they get to the approval, what they see is that claim's already been approved, that picture's been approved as a component, that block of text has already been approved as well, the header, the footer, that's already approved because we're using it for websites and so forth. So I know it's all been approved, and now I know the business rules that's combined these elements together because I've worked on the SOP, and I'm just checking the meaning. So therefore, the approval of this composite asset is a very light approval. It's not 2.3 days or 3.4 days. And then that merged asset, whether it's an email or your website or your image, once it's approved, then because you've got the components, which are high-res files in your DAM, you can pull that asset through to your marketing cloud or your website. And there are certain APIs, well, I won't mention the vendors, but you can pull all of that through by digital publishing. So that is the short answer, believe it or not. But the way to solve that, again, is the business rules and your MLR approving pre-approved assets already, and they'll like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, the bad news is we're out of time. The good news is that you will be continuing this conversation over on the
That's one answer.
Line. Because I know, but that's to be honest, like there was more than just one person asking very similar variants of that question, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in some of your strategies that you took to have those difficult conversations with the MLR teams, and and just to say, hey, we need to do some things different here, and so, but. Let's have that conversation over in the networking lounge. I'll invite you all to go there to talk to Kerry and learn some more. And then I'll also say we have a little bit of a break right now, but this is a great time to go over to the Birds of the Feather networking lounge as well. If there's other topics that suit your fancy, and you can join a conversation there. But I want to make sure that everyone comes back and joins us at 1:15 for a really fantastic panel that's coming up, where we'll hear some very different perspectives on some of these similar challenges. So hope you'll join us back here in a few minutes. But in the meantime, go talk to Kerry. All right. Thanks, Kerry. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.